Because, as you said, imagine getting to the end of your life and earning all kinds of money, being wealthy, and yet still feeling like you're missing something. Because the way that we oftentimes think that our life is going to be fulfilled is just as a juxtapose to what we presently are. In other words, just to be the opposite of what we presently are. Right now, I'm sad and miserable. Why? I don't know. I don't have any money. Okay, you describe a characteristic of yourself, but you haven't said why that makes you unhappy. But what we'll do is we'll say, well, if I'm unhappy now, then let's see, I don't know, I'm short right now, so if I was taller, I'd be happier. I'm poor right now, so if I had money, I'd be happier. In other words, it has to be the opposite of whatever I am right now. And so we can only look at the world and at our own lives in terms of the things that we have and then the deficiencies. I have this, I don't have that. But that becomes a very closed circle because there are so many things outside. I can promise you guys there are more things in heaven and earth than you can possibly dream of in your philosophies. Perhaps, he says, the most probable explanation is that this part of us that's missing wasn't made for this world. We're made for something else. And I wonder how many of you ever feel like that. Like, I just don't belong in this world. You know why you feel like that? Because you don't. But I'll tell you about that in 12th grade. So what are the rest of the pieces of that puzzle such that love is just one piece of it? What are the other pieces that we need to be satisfied?
Happiness.
What's that?
Happiness.
Happiness? That might be the complete thing, sure.
Knowledge.
Knowledge. Ooh. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of what? Like for yourself, what kind of knowledge would you have to have, would you maybe need to have in order to feel more complete with yourself? Is there something that any of you guys feel like you'd have to know or have some knowledge about that would make you feel more complete or more satisfied? Yeah.
Why are we here?
Oh, wow. So and do you mean that in the sense of like why are we here in terms of like biochemically, or do you mean that in the sense of like a meaning and a purpose?
Meaning and purpose.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge one, man. And I mean, it already is, whether you realize it or not. Like you think about the classes that you're in. Think about the classes that you like. What do those classes have in common? You know, there might be some entertaining aspect of it, but I would suggest to you that there's probably something there where you see some value in it. You see some purpose in it. Like when you guys get to be, you guys haven't taken electives yet, right? You guys take electives next year? So your elective classes might end up being some of your favorite classes because you get to take them. And so you get to choose from a series of, the medical thing. I don't even know what the electives here are. But once you get to choose them, you see some purpose in it maybe. So for example, if you want to go into the medical field, it makes sense to do the medical class that's here. And then if you do that, you can see it as preparing you for something later on. If any of you guys are like in ROTC and you plan on going into the military, you can see the ROTC program is preparing you for that, so you can find some level of meaning in it, or at least you find some level of purpose in it. If you're in a math class, I mean, like one of the more common, complaints I hear about math classes is, when are we ever going to have to use this stuff? You know, when are you ever going to have to use algebra? When are you ever going to have to use trigonometry? And it's a hard question to answer because you probably won't unless you go into mathematics. But it's also true that you won't even know that you needed it. So if you find yourself in a situation in life where you really could use geometry, it would never occur to you to use geometry because you don't know geometry. So you don't even realize it could be helping you. In other words, you don't even realize that there is some kind of a deficit in your life, something that you're missing. And then same token, you could go all the way through trigonometry, calculus, whatever, and then at the end of all of it, go into, I don't know, maybe you like flowers, so you open up a florist shop. And then you can say, man, I never even needed all that mathematical stuff. Perhaps, but it does help you think mathematically, which is different from normal thinking. So it may even be valuable in that case. My point to all of it is that if you go to work, your purpose in your, what's the whole reason for going to work for most people? Obviously, money. I just want money. Some of you will go to apply for a job and they'll ask, maybe you'll apply at Carl's Jr. and they'll ask you, why are you applying at Carl's Jr.? I'm just fascinated by cheeseburgers. No, why are you really applying? I just want money. It's not just because the uniforms are cool. I want money. That's the whole reason I'm doing it. And so every day when you go there, you'll probably be doing the math in your head. I'm earning however much an hour, 15 hour, whatever it is, and I'm here for 6 hours, so 15 times 6, and you're adding everything up in your head about how much money you're getting. That's the whole reason that you're there. And if that's all you want to get out of it, then you won't be disappointed. You'll get the money out of it. You have a reason for going. But if you don't have a reason for going, if you weren't going to be paid for it, then why on earth would you go? If you're in a class and you don't see the value in it, you don't see why, you don't see how you could possibly use it, then of course it doesn't really make a lot of sense for most people to pay attention. It almost makes sense just to try to get by, to get through. And so how is it that you can start to raise your grades, to learn more? There's two ways. First off, some people just really care about their grades. They don't really care so much about the class or the learning, but it's like, I have to do it because I want to get a good grade. But if you're particularly thoughtful, you can find something in every class, like every subject that exists, there's something fascinating about it. Because it wouldn't exist if there wasn't. In other words, somebody has to have found something interesting in it to start studying it in the first place. And anything that we study, there's literally millions and millions of people all over the world who study it, whether it's calculus, whether it's English, whether it's medical class, whatever it is. And so a good question to ask ourselves is, what am I missing? What is it that everybody else finds so interesting and I'm missing it? It's kind of like with music. If there's an artist who you listen to and you're like, oh, I don't like them, they suck. What are you missing though? And I'm not saying at the end of it you're going to find that it's good. I'm not saying you're going to like it. I'm not saying that you're going to become a mathematician. But you are going to find hopefully some reason to say, I think this is what people like about it. I can see why people would like this, no matter what it is, even if I don't. The point of it is to say, there's meaning in it. There's purpose in it. If you have a meaning, if you have a why, if you have a purpose, well, you can get by with anyhow. You'll find a how to do it. I'm sure some of you know people right now who work jobs that they hate for less money than they probably deserve, and they work harder than they ought to, and they're just struggling to get by. So then why on earth do they do it? So that you can have those cell phones, so that you can have those clothes, so that you can have the roof over your head. And they'll complain about it. They'll hate it. They'll come home in bad moods and all that. But what's the whole reason for doing it? What's their meaning? What's their purpose? To provide for a family. And that's a noble meaning. It's a noble purpose. Because there are a lot of people out there who do not provide for their families. They don't provide for the kids that they have out there somewhere that they haven't seen in such a long time. And so there's something noble that's there. And so you're absolutely right. There's something significant there about meaning and purpose. So the point is just that when you're thinking about what it is that makes a person complete, love is part of it. It's difficult to imagine a completely fulfilling life if you never get to experience love. It's almost impossible to experience a fulfilling life without finding some level of meaning and purpose. In other words, there's some things that are just universal to humans. And then there are some things they're going to be different for a bunch of us. Like, for example, you said knowledge. And, I don't know, I wonder what that knowledge would be for you. I wonder, do you just want to know how stuff works? I wonder. Don't you ever look at a building and just go, holy crap, someone built this. And then step back and go outside and look at the main building from the sidewalk and go, crap, someone built this. And then turn around and look at the rest of National City and see how many thousands of buildings there are in National City and go, holy crap, someone built all of this. And then you realize that under the ground there's all kinds of electrical wires, there's all kinds of plumbing, there's a whole city that we don't see on top of this city. And this is just one slice of San Diego, which is just one small speck on the corner of the state of California among the thousands and thousands of cities around the world that somebody built. And I just wonder, do you have any interest in how any of that was built? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe you just kind of go, I don't know. You ever think about it at night? You can look out and see all the lights and just realize, holy crap, all those things represent something that somebody built at some point. Every book, going out as far as you want, I guess, every book, every city, now you can start to look at every star that's out there. And then you start to realize how incredibly enormous the universe is. And there are some of you, I imagine, who just, you're in a place where you're supposed to be, I guess, but something's missing. Something's missing. You know, and it's difficult unless we take this kind of an inventory. Love is important, yeah. Knowledge for a lot of people, really, really important. For some of you, knowledge will mess you up. I oftentimes tell students, don't study philosophy. I have so many students who go off after the 12th grade year and they go study philosophy. I have a student right now doing a PhD in philosophy. I tell people all the time, don't study philosophy. It's really bad for you, man. And I think people think I'm joking when I say that, and I'm really not. It'll mess with your head. It will change everything about your life. Because you'll see things differently. The things that were important to you before philosophy will no longer be important to you. And the stuff that is important to you as a philosopher will be of no interest to most people around you. How best to live. How best to conduct oneself. How best to interpret the world. How to make sense of things. But this is one of those things that will drive a person like that. Because, as you said, imagine getting to the end of your life and earning all kinds of money, being wealthy, and yet still feeling like you're missing something. Because the way that we oftentimes think that our life is going to be fulfilled is just as a juxtapose to what we presently are. In other words, just to be the opposite of what we presently are. Right now I'm sad and miserable. Why? I don't know. I don't have any money. Okay, you described a characteristic of yourself, but you haven't said why that makes you unhappy. But what we'll do is we'll say, well, if I'm unhappy now, then, let's see, I don't know, I'm short right now, so if I was taller, I'd be happier. I'm poor right now, so if I had money, I'd be happier. In other words, it has to be the opposite of whatever I am right now. And so we can only look at the world and at our own lives in terms of the things that we have and then the deficiencies. I have this, I don't have that. But that becomes a very closed circle because there are so many things outside. I can promise you guys there are more things in heaven and earth than you can possibly dream of in your philosophies. Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is that most people's lives revolve around the sense of greed, nothing more than what you have.
Yeah, and it's worse than that. It's comparing ourselves to others. It's a sense of greed. It's like, why do you want, I don't know, why do you want a bigger house? Because I do. Why? It's there. Yeah, but there's only like two of you and you, like, I don't know, like you, maybe two of you and one or two kids. Do you need to have 7 bedrooms, 8 bedrooms? Yes, why? A workroom? I don't know. I'm thinking right now of a friend of mine. She lives in Kentucky. She was a nurse, and she got married, and her husband moved out to Kentucky from Antelope Valley, which is up near LA. And I don't know how to, I'm not bullshitting, I don't know how to describe it. They bought an estate in Kentucky. I mean, it's you know, like those things that you see in movies where you pull up and there's like a porch up there and there's like columns and then big doors? They bought one of those over there because property values are so much lower over there. They just saved up some money. She's a nurse. He does like custom work on cars, you know, like choppers and things like that. He does stuff like that, I think it is. I know he's a mechanic of some kind. So they move out to Kentucky. Their house is so big, no bullshit. They have their cats. They have 6 cats. Their cats have a playroom. They have a bedroom that's about probably a quarter of the size of this room right here, maybe a little bit more. And it's full of like they put stuff on the walls so the cats can run around, jump up there, climb up there. They have toys in there that hang from the walls. The whole room is just a cat playroom. I mean, at what point do you sit there and go, I think we have enough? And then turns out her and her husband, they've lived out there for, I think it's 2 years now, or 3 years now, something like that, 2 years now. And they're getting a divorce. It's not working out. They're missing something. And you might think, well, what could you possibly be missing? You have a great career, you have a lot of money, you have the house, you have what could you possibly be missing? And her answer seems to be, I don't know, but something is missing. And that's the really insidious part of it. Like when you see very wealthy people, I think I've mentioned before, like you see like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg, and when they get towards the end of their careers, or actually when they've just made a whole bunch of money, Bill Gates is like this. They spend their whole life after that just giving away their money. In fact, Bill Gates can't give his money away fast enough because the investments pay so much back that he tries to give it away, but every year he's worth more and more and more and more money. Even though his whole day job, from the time he wakes up till he goes to bed at night, his whole job is giving away money. And yet he still can't give it away fast enough. And you almost ask yourself, why is it that a guy who did what he did now spends his whole life giving away money? And it's almost like what he was doing before just didn't satisfy and fulfill him. There was something missing. Now, I don't mean to say that money leaves you unsatisfied. Money is important. The only people who say money doesn't matter are people who have a lot of it and people who have none of it. And you should never discuss money with people who have more than you or less than you. But we realize it matters to some degree. So there's still something missing. Dude, the guy created a company that almost every computer in the world runs off of it. The guy made a mark. The guy had meaning, he had purpose, and yet he's still lacking something. Yeah. So ask that question, now what? Because now he's in his 60s or so, 70s, and you almost wonder if that's what he misses. Being 19 and having to eat ramen and barely getting by and having to walk everywhere, take the bus. And so little tiny things that when you're poor that you do, that later on you miss doing. Because those are the things when you can come together. I guess that's maybe my point to a degree anyway. How does Bill Gates know that his wife loves him? Because they were on the bus together when they were 19 or 20 years old and had nothing, eating ramen. How can he know that his friends right now actually love him? He can't, because he's Bill Gates. He's worth billions. Isn't everybody around him after something? How do you know who your friends really are and who's really around you just because they need something from you? So it's almost like you start to lose that ability right there. And that's why most people I know who have a lot of money try to mask it. They don't want people to know. And they do the best they can to not let people know that they have a lot of money. Because when you have a lot of money, you never know who's around you because they really want to be around you or they just want something out of you. It's like, you guys see Guardians of the Galaxy? Number 2, I think it was. Great movie. If you haven't seen them, you should. The second one is a great scene where Drax, the Destroyer, he's talking to this girl Mantis, and he makes a comment about how she's ugly. She's like, really? He says, oh my God, you're hideous. She's like all heartbroken, like, really? And he's like, no, I mean that in a good way though. Because beautiful people, you can't really trust anybody around you because people are around you just because you're beautiful, not because you're a good person. He's like, beautiful people never know who really loves them, but ugly people do. And so if you're ugly and you've got people around you, rejoice. They actually like you. But that's the thing that starts to lack. So we won't go through and make an exhaustive list, but it is worth figuring out at some point. Like, what are the things in our lives that we think will give us meaning and purpose and fulfillment and satisfy us? And what you might find at the end of all of it is that when you come up with that list, there's still this question mark. There's still this question mark. And that's because there are parts of you that are full body, and then there are parts of you that are mind, and then there's a suggestion that there might be something else to you that's not just those things. And we spend our whole life trying to satisfy the things of the body, maybe even satisfying the things of the mind, and yet there might be something else here that we're missing because we completely ignore it. And it's just as much a part of us as our mind and our body. And unless we're aware of it, we don't know how to satisfy it. And unless we even know what satisfies it, we can never really come to it. And so, perhaps, he says, the most probable explanation is that this part of us that's missing wasn't made for this world. We're made for something else. And I wonder how many of you ever feel like that. Like, I just don't belong in this world. You know why you feel like that? Because you don't. But I'll tell you about that in 12th grade. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Friday-ish? Not so bad-ish?